My name is Timnit, and I am a researcher in artificial intelligence, and more specifically, a field called that we call ethical AI. And so, what this does is it tries to minimize the negative impacts of AI on society. There are many different ways to, I guess, define algorithmic bias, but I look at it as the overall and negative impacts that could arise or harms that could arise uh, because of the use of artificial intelligence in specific areas. And so this harm could arise with the way in which it's used, even if it works perfectly, the population that it's used on, and for what purpose. It could be because of the training data that is used to train the models, or it could be because of any number of things. So I have a much more general view of what algorithmic bias is. My view of algorithmic bias is that it shouldn't be a very narrowly defined to mean the disparities in error rates that could arise when you use artificial intelligence, the disparities in error rates that could arise among different populations. It should be much more generalized to include all of the harms that we potentially see, even if you use artificial intelligence that works perfectly as intended. So one example here is surveillance and trying to track different groups of people for different purposes. This tool doesn't have to have any error rates, any disparities in error rates to cause harm. Very many different ways in which we can have quote unquote bias in the tools that we build based on artificial intelligence. And Deborah Raji is somebody who has created this great Twitter thread with resources. And so this bias can occur anywhere from how the problem and the research in question and the product is conceptualized to work for whom and to benefit whom, anywhere to how it's deployed, and and in that sense too, again, even if it works perfectly, if the task itself is something that harms people, this tool can harm people. So anywhere along that pipeline from conceptualizing the product or the research in question to deployment, you can have the biases injected from the people who create the products, the society in which the product is deployed, the data and how it's collected and whom is collected from, the model and how what is optimized in the model. So anywhere along this pipeline, there can be a lot of bias. They have to coexist together. It has to be a must. So we should demand that all new technologies coexist with ethics. And so they have to, I think we have to demand that they coexist together in order to ensure that they're not just tools of domination, but that they are done and worked on in a way that can try to benefit as many people as possible. I think, like any tool, AI can be used to do whatever the people who are creating the tool use it for. So if that is used specifically, purely to maximize profit in ways that can be detrimental to people, then that's what's going to be used. And so if businesses are only thinking about purely maximizing profit, regardless of the consequences, and that's the only angle they look at, they will use AI to do that, right? So businesses need to be incentivized to think about more than just purely maximizing profit. And even on their own, they can start to think about, again, who's at the table when they think about the products that they're building, when they conceptualize the tools that they're building. They should start with a very diverse group of people to start, disciplinary wise, demographic wise, etc. And then they should look at all of the different processes in their pipeline right after they conceptualize the product or the tool. How are they collecting data sets? Are they collecting data sets ethically? Are they ethically sourcing data, or are they doing it in an extractive manner? What are the values they're encoding in the various parts of the pipeline? For instance, when they're conceptualizing their models and their loss functions, et cetera, if we're going to be technical about it. And so businesses have to just think about the process by which they are building products and conceptualizing research questions or product questions, and interrogate every single part of that pipeline. I don't really subscribe to the notion that AI will automatically make our lives easier. I subscribe to the notion that AI will do what we humans decide it will do. And so, just like any tool in humanity, it could be used to make our lives easier or harder. And make the lives of maybe a few people easier or harder. So, for instance, when we talk about self-driving cars, some people talk about how it will give independence. So, for instance, people with disabilities talk about how they could have more independence with self-driving cars, but that's only going to be possible if self-driving cars are created with the explicit goal of giving independence, more independence to people, right? Not with the explicit goal of maximizing profit. So, so once again, I believe that we have the potential to do many things with AI that might be beneficial to us, but that is only possible if we start the development with that explicit goal. I am right. I was writing a very short book on topics of beyond fairness and computer vision specifically, which is my sub area. I was supposed to write this book for a long time ago, and I'm finally starting with Emily Denton. And I am just working on my own research center that hopefully will be launched in the next few months.